Sometimes you don't really see the scale change at all. Remember, I pulled up your picture and I was like, oh my gosh, like who even was that 2 years ago? It's crazy how much people are accidentally under eating, but they think that they're not.
What is the most overrated nutrition trend?
I'm going to ruffle feathers. I don't want to ruffle feathers.
Welcome to Project Swagger, the podcast for ambitious hustlers who don't have time for shit that doesn't work. I'm Robin Edison, athlete, executive, mom of two, and everything I bring to Project Swagger, I lived first. Today, I'm bringing you a conversation with my personal nutritionist, Amanda, aka Simply Manders. I met Amanda years ago. I was breastfeeding. I was getting back to really intense training, and I was wanting to make sure that I was fueling properly. And interestingly, when I started working with Amanda, I am the same weight that I am now a few years later, but my body composition has completely changed. This is for my performance-minded hustlers and those of you who are wanting to add years to your life and vitality to those years. Amanda Manders is such a wealth of knowledge. I have personally relied on her to make sure that I'm living optimally and fueling intentionally. And here is my conversation with Manders. Yay! I'm so excited to have you on Project Swagger. It's so good to see you.
Oh my gosh, you look so amazing.
Introduce yourself for the people, my girl.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I have been a nutritionist for 9 years. I work for Black Iron Nutrition, and I had quite a few life changes over the last decade, but I decided that I loved helping people like heal their relationship with food, especially in the CrossFit space, which is where I kind of came into the nutrition space in general. And there just wasn't a lot of like YouTube videos back then in the early 2000s and things that, you know, it was all like diet culture from the Slim Fast days and like just everything that was heavily in the magazines. And so when I started, you know, understanding how important fueling for things like CrossFit became, I was like, I want to help people with this because I feel like it's just so misunderstood. So I just love working with anyone who wants to help their relationship with food.
Oh, I love this. Okay, so I discovered Manders on YouTube. I've been following Manders on YouTube forever, and I always appreciated her perspective on like wanting to be strong, wanting to get stronger, wanting to fuel for performance, and I really gravitated towards that. And I reached out to Manders after Atlas was born, when I was still breastfeeding. My primary objective was like to make sure I was getting the right amount of calories for my energy expenditure. I was already back to work at Peloton. I had been for months. And I was ready to like get my body composition back too. And that it really helped me for her to like look at my lifestyle, look at my training needs, and put me in the performance category. But interestingly, when I look back, I look different, but my weight is pretty much the same and my size is pretty much the same. So it's just so fascinating how nutrition is a lever you can pull, still perform at a high level, but also have body composition changes that like make you feel really good about yourself.
Totally. And I think a lot of people forget that maintenance, like being around your maintenance level is so underrated because, you know, you scroll and you see everyone like someone's in a bulk and someone's in a cut, but you don't really see people talking about being at maintenance and how it can really do wonders for your body composition change. Except the caveat to that is that it just takes a really long time, right? It's not that instant gratification that you get with a cut or with a bulk when you're seeing the scale change. Sometimes, like you said, you don't really see the scale change at all. And your body composition, you look back, like, you remember I pulled up your picture and I was like, oh my gosh, like who even was that 2 years ago compared to now? Like, it's so different, but like you said, the weight is pretty much the same. And so that's one of the things that I wanted to, you know, help specifically women with, because I feel, you know, just the culture in general is always like, we need to be smaller, we need to be skinny and small. And as you know, you're always in the strong is not what, or skinny is not what we want. We want to be strong, not skinny. And so I don't know, I just feel like everyone's so hyper focused on the scale. So when you remove that focus on it and you're just focusing on your performance and on how you're feeling, ultimately you end up looking even better because you take all the stress off of it and you're like, oh wow, I'm fueling myself, I'm feeling great, I'm sleeping better, I'm performing better. And then the body composition changes happen because of that.
Yeah. And let's break it down for folks who maybe are newer to these concepts of like bulking and cutting and maybe perceive bulking as like I lift the weight And then 2 seconds, then tomorrow morning I'm going to wake up and I'm going to look like Arnold's, daughter.
Yes.
Like break that down for folks a little bit.
Yeah, so your maintenance level, your what we would call your total daily energy expenditure means that that's how much you as a human being based on your basal metabolic rate, which is basically just what your body burns to exist, plus anything additional. So working out, movement, and then other genetic factors play into account. For example, a taller person, a larger person, a younger person will burn more than an older person or, a super short person. So there's all these different variables that play into account of your total daily energy expenditure. And so the only way really outside of metabolic testing, but if you're just someone listening to this and you're like, well, I don't know how much I burn, there are some calculators that can give you a generic idea. I say generic, don't use it very specifically, but there's rough estimates based on your age, your height, your overall energy level. And so in order to figure that out, you would want to basically eat that same amount. So for example, if I burned 2,000 calories roughly a day, I would want to eat 2,000 calories and track my weight for usually a couple of weeks to see how it fluctuates. If it stays roughly within like a 0.2 to 0.4 range per week, as you've been eating that amount, then that's likely an indicator that that's your maintenance level. So in order to be in what people call a bulk, it can be anywhere from like 200 to 500 calories over your maintenance, and then the opposite in being a deficit. So it would be somewhere between 200, 500 calories aggressively in a cut, which means that you're just eating that amount under your total daily energy expenditure.
Okay, now that we've set the table on those concepts, let's talk about fueling for performance. What would you say is the North Star when somebody's fueling for performance?
Yeah, so carbohydrates is going to be your bread and butter.
Carbs are not the enemy, y'all.
Yes. This is one of those things where back in the day in the CrossFit era, if anyone listening to this has done CrossFit or as part of an OG CrossFit years, there used to be this big obsession with donuts for some reason. It was like everyone that did CrossFit loved donuts and talking about, don't be scared of donuts because it's sugary and it's carbs. And, I laugh at that era because the point was still kind of there, right? Like we're trying to get people to understand you do need carbohydrates. Your muscles, they need glycogen coming directly from carbohydrates. So, when we're talking about your high rock specific fueling, right, we really want to prioritize high glycemic, super fast digesting carbohydrates, things that don't have a lot of fiber in them, things that don't have a lot of fats. But mostly just for performance in general, we want to make sure that we're timing the carbohydrates around your workout windows. And if you're someone who does high rocks, like we talked about your pre-night high rocks fueling and what that looks like. We could talk a little bit about that too if you want, but just really making sure that you're eating carbohydrates around your expenditure for those harder training sessions and keeping protein pretty consistent throughout the day. And then your fat sources usually farther away from your workout window.
Yeah, that was really helpful for me in working with you and dialing in, first of all, my macronutrients. And for those watching, your macronutrients are going to be needs are going to be different than somebody else who might be the literal same exact size and age and weight. And so
Totally.
Manders, what the great thing about working with somebody like Manders is that she took my exact data points and then translated that. And then it was like a give and take. It was like, okay, let's see what happens there for a few weeks. But in training for high rocks, and when I realized that I was doing, and sometimes with my Peloton schedule, it's like 2 days, 3 days, really 90-minute high rock sessions. I actually needed different fueling if I was going to spend 60-minute zone 2 on a bike, or if it was going to be a 60-minute interval run, or if it was going to be a 60-minute high rock session where I'm, pushing a really intense sled. But it was always prioritizing carbs and protein around those meals. And if volume, as a plant-based athlete, I tend to eat more volume more frequently.
Mm-hmm.
And it was playing around with, the rule of half. It's like half before, half after, or, making sure I always meal prep something that this is where protein bagels became a daily staple, because that was something I was able to eat really quickly and then get into a workout, and then really saving my salads and things that are super fibrous for either usually at night or earlier in the morning when I know it'd be a few hours away from my training. The message I want to get out for folks is we've got to fuel, even if you don't consider yourself somebody who's fueling for performance, like a literal finish line or competition that's coming up, or consider yourself competitive in anything at all. We need to fuel for the life performance, for the gains and the hard work that we're putting into our workouts. Even if you consider them recreational, you have to fuel those.
Yeah.
So what's a sign that somebody is underfueled or underhydrated?
Yeah, great question. So I think number one would obviously just be like excessive fatigue, feeling like their workouts are getting harder. And it's a fine line because you obviously want to be able to challenge yourself and feel like you're working hard. But if you're feeling dizzy, lightheaded, fatigued, feeling like you need to sit down during workouts, you're feeling like your body feels very heavy, not sleeping well, also having very like strong cravings for things that you don't typically have cravings for is another big sign. Irritability, just overall general exhaustion throughout the day, like being cranky, not feeling great. And these are, different than your typical, man, that workout was hard.
Right.
It's not just like, ooh, I feel a little sore. It's like, I physically feel ill.
Yeah.
And that's where people are feeling it's to me as a coach, obviously I'm like, okay, we need to figure something out. We need to eat here. Like something's happening. And it's funny because people will think a lot of times that they're eating enough. And then when they actually look at it and they're examining their, whatever it may be, MyFitnessPal or My Macros Plus, and they're looking through the things, it's crazy how much people are accidentally under eating, but they think that they're not.
Yeah, and what I think the biggest surprise for me when I started tracking macros, which by the way, I thought I was going to do it for like a few weeks and then be like, I'm so over it. This is annoying. I don't necessarily consider myself like a numbers person, but for me, it's like a game. And what surprised me were portion sizes that I thought I was getting a certain amount of protein, and I was under that number. And then other things like peanut butter, for example. I was like, oh girl, that's a Herculean dose of the PB. And not that it's bad and we need fats, but we want to know what we're putting in to make sure that it's getting us to the place that we want to be energy wise.
100%. Yes. And I think that's something that I also, want people to understand when they're coming to anything in life, when they're like, okay, I'm coming to this realization that I want to build muscle or lose body fat or, increase my PR in XYZ, do a high rocks, whatever it may be. It really does benefit you to have as much information as possible about what it is that you're currently doing that's working and that's not working. Because people will come to me and be like, okay, well, I need to, lose body fat. And it's like, great. Do we know what we're eating? Well, I have to have this and I have that. And it's like, no, we need to know really what you're eating. And it might be annoying. Yes, it can be a little frustrating to have to weigh things out and really take the time, but it is so important, I think, for anyone where they are, like you said, whether you're doing it recreationally or if you're competing in high rocks, if you don't have that data to really understand what you're taking in, how can you make changes to it if you're just kind of guessing?
All right, let's get into some rapid fire. What is the most overrated nutrition trend?
Oh, dude, there's so many.
You're like, how much time do you have?
No, right? I'm like, hold on, I got all day for this. Oh man, I think the most overrated okay, I have to say, I think it's I'm going to ruffle feathers. I don't want to ruffle feathers. I think it might be the carnivore diet. There's so many different things I can say about that. And also for what it's worth for people listening, just so that everyone is aware, I do not have a registered dietitian credential just because I know people love to throw that out there. My certificate comes from the Nutritional Therapy Practitioner Association. So I'm certified in NTP. So what I'm saying is not dietary medical advice for anyone listening. But yeah, I think the carnivore diet is just not for your average person. I'll put it that way. And you're missing out on a lot of nutrients in other areas. And I think sometimes people will do something like that, a trend in which cuts out keto is another great one. The initial purpose of keto diets, amazing. We love that for its intended purpose. But for people to lose weight, they think that it's keto that's doing it or the carnivore diet that's doing it. And in reality, they just cut out an entire group of food, which is cutting out an entire group of calories. So therefore lowering
it's
the
caloric
restriction.
restriction.
So
Yeah.
100%. It's just a more intense way of doing it, and I don't love that for the average person.
What is the most underrated? Like, what nutrition habit do you think more folks would adopt?
I think, honestly, I do kind of like the protein trend that's going on. I know that, everyone's kind of annoyed of it, but for me, from a nutritional standpoint, I'm like, if we can figure out how to get people to get more protein in, why not? I mean, literally, this is clear protein that I have right here. I'm just sipping on it, And so it's like, if we can get people to do that in a way that feels good for them, I don't think we should hate on it. Like, I know not everything needs to have protein in it, but if we can offer it to people who maybe struggle, I think it's great. I think so many people will benefit from more protein intake.
Agreed. Do you have a supplement? I know I know your perspective on supplements is like, be selective. You don't need 1,000 pills and potions.
Totally.
But do you have a sworn by supplement, like something that you do think is credible?
So I actually have you could drink intra or post. It's called Pure Rebuild, and it's a supplement that has a little bit of carbohydrate, a little bit of creatine, some branched chain amino acids as well. It's kind of like the best of everything that you could have in an intra or post workout. And sometimes what I like to do is mix that with protein immediately after. So it's like quick digesting carbohydrate, easy protein to digest, and also gives the benefit of the creatine, branched chain amino acids, things that I would say not everyone has just like in their cabinet. Yeah. So I think it's a good resource to use if you're someone who's training and needs something quick. So for me, that's just like an easy, quick thing to do post-workout.
Love that. Last question. What do you recommend as a pantry or a fridge staple? Like, what's something that you think every kitchen should have?
I think oatmeal.
I'm here for that.
Because I know you love your oatmeal too. I love it. I just feel like you can do so many things with it. And like, you can make baked goods. You can grind it up into flour. You can have oatmeal. You can have, I love, and I believe you make these as well, the protein balls, like the energy balls. I mean, you can do so many different things and also getting so much fiber in them. So I just feel like that's another thing too that people could benefit more from is fiber. So I think they're kind of getting the best of both worlds, protein and fiber when it comes to that. If you add in some protein powder or throw it into a meal or a smoothie or something like that, you really can't go wrong with oatmeal.
So let's close with Manders' top 3 fueling non-negotiables. Like, what are like topics or considerations that you want the listener to take away?
Okay, so making sure that you are prioritizing your recovery just as much as you're prioritizing your training. So, and even if that means that you need to skip a day because you need to sleep a little bit more because your body's exhausted, you need to do that because it's better that you get the recovery instead of forcing yourself into a really brutal session that probably didn't do as much for you as it could have if you were sleeping. So number one, I would say the more energy that you put into your training, just as much, if not more energy needs to go into your recovery. Sleep, water, overall stress management, food quality, everything that you can possibly, as they like to say, the maxing, I say, when it comes to recovery max, right? And the second thing I would say is when it comes to carbohydrates, pre and post workout or event, quick, faster digesting carbohydrates are going to be your friends. So making sure that you're prioritizing that as opposed to slower digesting or higher fat foods and higher fiber foods. So that needs to be away from your workout window, and then closer to it is fast digesting. And obviously protein is great too, but just in the sense of glycogen, we're talking about carbohydrates. And then I think for just in general life purpose, when you're training, this is not necessarily nutrition related, but I think it does kind of tie in. You need to find the thing that you enjoy doing, whether that is food or training or whatever it may be, because to me, this is a non-negotiable because it's the only way that anyone's going to be able to stick with something. And that's tracking macros or eating something. There's no way that the longevity of what you're doing, if you're miserable, it's going to be beneficial for you and you're not going to stick to it. So everyone's so different and everyone's needs and likes are so different that we have to find whatever that is that makes you happy, that makes you feel fulfilled, whether that is, maybe tracking macros is not the best thing for you because it makes you feel miserable or unhealthy and obsessive, then that's fine. Then we don't need to do that. We can find something else. So don't hold yourself to a box in a training perspective, a nutrition perspective. Think about the thing that is going to be the best for you that fills your cup and realize that that might look different than someone else's.
Totally. That's the long game. All right. So now we've piqued folks' interest about this nutrition game. Where can folks find you?
Oh my gosh, Simply Mander on all platforms. And nutrition-wise, like I said, work for Black Iron Nutrition, and YouTube, and TikTok and Instagram is all just Simply Mander.
Thank you so much, Manders. You have helped me incredibly personally. I deeply respect you. I think that you are such a pure heart in this wellness space. And I'm sending you love always. Thank you so much for joining Project Swagger.
Yay! Thank you for having me.
Isn't Amanda the best, y'all? I hope you got a lot out of that conversation, and we're gonna dive even deeper next week. I'm gonna tell you how I track my macros now, a few years in, some of the mistakes I made, lessons learned, all about tracking. It can be a concept that is overcomplicated, but we are going to simplify it, and I'm gonna give you my specific POV on tracking macros and how I fuel for the big life that I'm trying to lead, and maybe you can take some of those tips away into the big life you're trying to lead. I'll see you next week.